All right, this section is on similar polygons. The symbol for similar is written right here. It's called a tilde. It's like what's above the congruent symbol. So it looks like this. Okay, that means similar. All right, our goal for today is I can identify and apply similarity relationships in polygons. So first off, let's make sure we know what the word similar means. It says, which of these figures looks similar? Hint, there's two pairs. All right, so hopefully you chose, let's use color to distinguish which ones are similar. So I'll say A and G are similar. And then also, you probably noticed that C and E are similar. If you look, both of these have two things in common. They're the same shape. I shouldn't say they have two things in common. I would describe them as the same shape, they're just different sizes. For B, there is no other star. D and F are both triangles, but triangle F looks more like a right triangle, and triangle D definitely is not. And C is an oval, and there's no other ovals. So, what does similar mean? Does similar mean congruent? Are those two congruent that are highlighted in green? No. Similar does not mean congruent. Okay? So I'm going to put down no. Similar does not mean congruent. Congruent means same shape and size. Congruent means same shape and size. Similar means same shape, different size. Okay, now I don't mean a triangle and a triangle. I mean a triangle that has the exact same shape to it. So it'd have to have three congruent angles. Like the three angles are 30, 60, and 90. Then on your other triangle, it has to be 30, 60, and 90 also. So the angle measures can't change. Okay, let's define similar polygons. Similar polygons. Two polygons are similar. There's that symbol again. And then there's IFF. That's not a typo. That means if and only if their corresponding angles are congruent. So corresponding angles have to be congruent. You have to have, like if it's a triangle, you have to have three sets of congruent angles. So not all three angles have to be congruent, but three sets of congruent angles. And their corresponding sides are not congruent because we're going to have different lengths here. They are going to be proportional. Okay. So, and if you recall, in the last section, the previous notes to this was solving a proportion. So obviously it should be like, okay, yeah, that's why we did that. So once again, that new symbol for similar is that tilde. Okay, so let's do some examples here. As I'm doing examples, when I'm in class, I like to use boxes and circles. I'm going to color code on this, or sometimes I use boxes, circles, little floofy clouds. And it's to match up corresponding parts. So when I'm doing it, please make sure you're doing that too. Okay. Example 1 says, if triangle ABC is similar to, remember, is similar to triangle DEF, draw the diagram. Okay, so I'm going to draw my two triangles. Oops. So let's say here's my first triangle. Okay, and I just randomly drew it, right? Now, I want to draw a triangle that looks exactly like that, but it can be a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. I don't want to draw a right triangle or an equilateral triangle. I want to draw something that looks similar. So what you could do if you wanted to is you could copy and you can paste it, and then you can change this. If you change this way, you're changing the shape of it. You want to change the size. So if you circle the whole thing, I believe you can change the size by just moving it in and out, like so. Like you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. Okay, so I'll make it smaller, like so. Okay, so the two triangles are similar right now, but I also want to show that. So I'm going to say this is A, B, and C. Now A matches up with D, so I'm going to put D in the same spot because they're congruent. Then I have B corresponds to E, so B and E are congruent. So I'm going to put E right here, and then this is F. I also want to show what I just said. Angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle B is congruent to angle E. And then angle C is congruent to angle F. And I'm giving them their own markings. Now the sides I'm not marking congruent because the sides aren't congruent. They're proportionate. B says identify the congruent corresponding angles. So we're going to say what we just wrote. Angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle B is congruent to angle E. And angle C is congruent to angle F. So 3 sets of congruent angles. Now, we do not have 3 sets of congruent sides, so don't write down the congruent symbol. We have proportionate sides. We have 3 sets of them. So I'm going to make 3 ratios, which is just another word for fraction. And I'm going to say which sides are proportionate. Sorry, I stumbled on my words there. So I know AB and ED or DE are proportionate. So I'm going to say AB over DE. Okay? It's the same proportion or same ratio as, and then I can pick another side. Now also please realize you could have gotten this from up top here. You could say BC and EF. BC and EF. So I just did BC and EF. I already just did these 2 sides. And now I still have AC and DF. AC and DF. Please make sure you don't put DF over AC. That's not true necessarily. So notice on the top here, only ABs and Cs, and on the bottom, DEs and Fs. Okay? All right, so that's showing that the sides are proportionate. All right, this next one here says determine if the triangles are similar. And we're going to do it by answering these questions. So in order to know if they're similar, the first question you should ask yourself is, do their triangles have 3 pairs of congruent angles? So I say, okay, well, this is 80 and this is 80. So that's 1 pair. And then I see 64 and 36. I shouldn't say like, no, they're not congruent then, those angles, because I can figure out the 3rd angle in each triangle. If I do 80 plus 36, 180 minus that, I get 64 degrees. Same thing here. If I do 80 plus 64, 180 minus that, I get 36 degrees. So angle M is congruent to angle S, and angle Q is congruent to angle N. So do you have 3 pairs of congruent angles? Yes. Do the triangles have 3 pairs of proportionate sides? Okay, so now I have to check my proportions. Now, you can't just pick anything you want to match up. Now, if they're not proportionate, I'll end up putting slashes through these saying that they're not equal. But for now, I'll leave them equal. Okay, here's what I like to do. I like to match up the sides using the angles. So I'll start with this side that's 4. Okay? I want to know which side is proportionate to that. It is in between the 2 same angles. This is in between 1 tick mark and then the 1 tick mark with a slash. 1 tick mark and 1 tick mark with a slash. This matches up with the 2, not with the 6. So my first proportion is going to be 4 over 2. We're going to do left over right. All right, let's do the 10 next. So 10 is in between 2 tick marks and 1 tick mark. 2 tick marks and 1 tick mark. So that matches up with 5. And then last but not least, we have 12 over 6. So another thing that you can look at is you can do smallest over smallest, medium over medium, big over big. That's another way of looking at it. All right, I need to know, are these 3 fractions equivalent? So if you simplify each fraction, 4 over 2 is 2, 10 over 5 is 2, and 10 over 6 is 2. So yes, the sides are proportionate, and the reason why is they all equal 2. C says write a similarity statement. So a similarity statement, you're using the similar symbol. These are triangles, so we're going to talk about each triangle. We'll start with the first one. We can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call it TMN. Now the second triangle, you have to match up the congruent corresponding angles. So T was congruent to W, and then M was congruent to S, and N was congruent to Q. So there's my similarity statement. Okay. Let's try another one. It says, on the last problem, what fraction do all three ratios simplify to? They all simplify to 2. This ratio is called our scale factor, or our similarity ratio. Now, if you call it a scale factor, hold on, let me write similarity ratio. If you call it a scale factor, you can just say it's 2. If you're calling it a similarity ratio, ratio is a fraction, so you should use 2 over 1, but we're just going to say 2. That's our scale factor. Okay. One thing that you have to realize is that when you're giving a scale factor, you can't use decimals. So let's say you had these 3 proportions right here, okay? If our 3 ratios were 2.5 over 1, 10 over 4, and 5 over 2, what would the similarity ratio be? You might be saying they all simplify to 2.5, but we don't want to write it as a decimal. We want to write it as a fraction. So what we can look for is our most simplified fraction. 10 over 4 is still simplifiable because they're both even. 2 goes into both. 2 goes into 10 5 times, and 2 goes into 4 twice. So that is 5 over 2, which is this right here. So we would be writing this as 5 over 2. That's what the similarity ratio is. Let me move this down here. Okay, the similarity ratio is 5 over 2. Could I write a ratio as 1 divided by 0.5? No, you can't. There's 2 ways to figure out how I can get this to not be a fraction. One is without a calculator. I can say, all right, I need to multiply this by something, okay? And I need the new denominator to be a whole number. I don't want it to be a decimal. So what I can do is I can double 0.5, but then I would have to double my numerator. So that becomes 2 over 0.5 times 2, which is 1. So your similarity ratio would be 2. Okay? Now, if you did not know what that was, you could always put 1 divided by 0.5 in your calculator. Let me go ahead and do that. Let it warm up there. Okay, so if I did in my calculator, 1 divided by 0.5, 1 divided by 0.5, you'll see that it gives you 2. So you could also always check it that way. Now, let me show you this also. Let's say that I did 9 divided by 7, and I accidentally had that as a similarity ratio. No decimals, right? So if it's already written as a decimal and you want to get it to a fraction, on a TI-83 or TI-84 calculator, what you can do is you can hit the math button. The first option is turn it to a fraction, hit enter, and it'll tell you it's 9/7. Okay, so those are some just good things to realize. All right, let me go back here. This is 2. Okay. All right, so next we have polygon. Instead of a triangle, we're going to do different types of different types of polygons. This is just polygon. RSTUV is similar to, right, polygon ABCD. It says find the scale factor of RSTUV to ABCDE. So we need a scale factor. So first off, what you want to do is you want to match up your congruent corresponding angles. I know R is congruent to A. So I'm going to do R is congruent to A. Next, I know S is congruent to B. So I'm going to mark S congruent to B. Next, I know T is congruent to C. So I'm going to mark T congruent to C. Next, I know that U is congruent to D. So U, I'm going to go like this for U and this for D. And then finally, I know that V is congruent to E. I could give them another marking, like I can go like this and give them both the same marking, but instead I'm just going to leave them as my blank angle, and I'll refer to V and E as my blank angle. They match up. Okay, so first off, I want to find the scale factor. So scale factor looks like this, like 5/2 or 2 over 1, which is 2. So I need to come up with a scale factor, meaning I need to come up with a ratio, a fraction. Okay, now it might be simplifiable to just 6 or something like that, but I'm going to start off by saying it's a fraction. I'm going to come over to the polygon on my left, and I'm looking for a side that I know, that it's just a number. So this has x in it, don't want to use that. This has y plus 2, don't want to use this. This has an 18. So I'm going to have an 18. I'm going to use that to help me get my scale factor over. And then I need the corresponding side. If you look, this is in between 2 and my 3 tick mark angle. So I'm going to look for my 2 and 3 tick mark angle, which is right here, 2, 3. So this side is the one that corresponds to it. That's 4. So I have 18 over 4. 18 over 4 is simplifiable, so I'm going to simplify that fraction. Both 18 and 4 are even. 2 goes into there 9 times and 2 times. So the scale factor is 9 over 2. You might be asking yourself, can we do 2 over 9 if we did right to left? No, you always do left to right or top to bottom. Also, it tells you right here, RSTUV to ABCD. So this one first, this one second. All right, next you have to find x and y. So what we're going to do is you're going to use that scale factor. It could be simplified or not. It does not matter. You're going to use that to help you make a proportion, cross multiply, and solve it. So whenever you're finding a variable in this section, most of the time you are going to do it by using a proportion. So we already know that we said that 18 over 4. So 18 from the triangle on the left, polygon on the left, 4 from the polygon on the right. 18 over 4 is equivalent to. All right, let's make a proportion with x in it. So I'm going to say this is x right here, right? On the triangle. Oh, I did it again. Polygon on the left. That side right there, I can put that in my numerator. What does it correspond to on your other polygon? If you look, it's in between 1 tick mark and no tick marks. 1 tick mark and no tick marks is 3. And then I can cross multiply and solve. So I have 4 times x, which is 4x, equals 18 times 3, which is 54. And then divide both sides by 4. If you need to use a calculator, by all means do so. I'll do it in my head. When I'm dividing by 4, I divide by 2 twice. So half of 54 is 28. No, half of 54, 25 plus 27. Half of 27 is 13.5. Okay, so you can use a calculator, but I just did it in my head, even though I made a mistake at first. All right, now I want to solve for y. I'm going to use that 18 over 4 again. People always ask, can you use 9 over 2? Yes, you can. It's the same thing as 18 over 4. And now I'm going to put y in here. So remember, polygon on the left over polygon on the right. Everything in the numerator has to be from the polygon on the left. So next I'll use this. Wow, that wasn't good. I thought I had my highlighter on. Next I'll use this y plus 2, right, which is in between this fancy tick mark and 3. So fancy tick mark and 3 is this right here over 5. So please don't put 5 over y plus 2. It's y plus 2 over 5 because it's on the left over on the right. Okay, what happened to that? There was a 4. Okay, remember any binomial I like to put in parentheses, and now I can cross multiply. 4 times y plus 2 is equal to 18 times 5, which is 90. Distribute your 4. 4y plus 8 is equal to 90. Subtract 8 from both sides. 4y is equal to 82. And then divide both sides by 4. Y equals 20.5. Okay? So the key to this is we make a proportion and we solve it. We have similarity, you make a proportion and solve it. You see similar, you should be telling yourself, I need a proportion. I need a proportion. A proportion is 2 fractions that equal to each other like this. Just a single fraction is called a ratio. Okay, next one. It says, if triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF, find x, y, and z, and the scale factor. Okay, so first off, I see that they're similar, so I'm going to mark the angles that are congruent. I know A is congruent to D, so I'll mark that, A congruent to D. And then I know B is congruent to E, so B and E are congruent. And then finally, I can use C as my blank angle, or I can put 3 tick marks there, congruent to F. I can use blank or multiple tick marks. Okay, so let's solve for X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to start by solving for z because I need my angles for help here. Okay? Well, I don't need them, but I want my angles for help here. So if you look at z, I'm not going to use a proportion because you're not going to use a proportion to solve for angles. You're going to use a proportion to solve for sides. Z is the same thing as this angle right here, which is blank. So I can't just tell by looking at it. But I say to myself, I know this is 39. Only if I knew what this was, I could totally get it. So then I say that has 2 tick marks. So does this. So this is 82. And now I can figure out what that angle is. Or I can say this is 39. And now I can figure out what that angle is. Okay? That's what I like to do. So I'm going to do 82 plus 39. 82 plus 39 plus z equals 180. 82 plus 39 is 121 plus z equals 180. And then subtract 121 from both sides. So we have our first variable. We have z is 59. Okay. All right, now I have to solve for x and y. This is using similarity. And I'm solving for sides, so I know I'm going to use a proportion. So I'm going to start by going like this and making a proportion. Okay, so I'm going to start with the triangle on the left, and I don't want to say like, oh, I can pick 8, 5, or 12, because if you look at the triangle on the right, those all have variables in it. So let's solve for x first. Why do we have to solve for x first? Because we do need to solve for x first. We have to solve for x first because there's 2 of them. We don't have enough information to solve for y yet. We need it to solve for x. So we're going to start by solving for x. That means that I'm going to use the same color. I'm just going to use circles in a box. So I need to know what this corresponds to, and I need to know what this corresponds to. And they don't correspond to each other. That's why I used a circle in a box. Okay, so if we go back to the triangle on the left, if we look at this one right here, the one that's x is in between my 3 tick marks and my 2 tick mark. So I'm going to look for 3 and 2. That's this side right here. So that corresponds to the 5. Next, I have this x plus 6, which is in between 2 and 1 tick mark. So 2 and 1 tick mark, which is this side. So that corresponds to the 8. Okay, so now I'm ready to make my proportion. And I can cross multiply and solve it. I'm going to start with the triangle on the left. I can use the 8 or the 5. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do 8. And then put that over its corresponding side, which is x plus 6, equals. Go back to the triangle on the left, which is 5. Put it over its corresponding side, which is x. So now I need to cross multiply and solve this. This is a binomial, so I'm going to put it in parentheses. I have 5 times x plus 6 is equal to 8x. Distribute. 5x plus 30 is equal to 8x. Subtract 5x from both sides. I have 30 is equal to 3x. Divide by 3, and we have x is 10. All right, so far we have x, we have z, we need y and the scale factor. All right, so I'm going to solve for y, but remember we solved for x first because we needed it to solve for y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and anything that has an x in it, I'm going to cross it off and replace it with what it actually is. So this I'm going to change to, this is a 10. I must put 11. All right, and then what else has x in it? This has x in it. So this is 10. So this is 16 instead. Okay. So the only thing that I haven't matched up is this side that's 12, and it matches up with this side that's y plus 3, y plus 11. Okay, so now I'm ready to make my proportion, cross multiply, and solve it. I can choose the 8 or 5, or I can start with the 12. It doesn't matter. I'm going to choose the smaller number because it's going to be easier for me to work with. So I'm going to do 5 over 5 corresponds to 10. So 5 over 10 equals. And now I'm going to go back to this triangle. I'm going to use the 12 now and put that over y plus 11. And now I need to cross multiply to solve this. This is a binomial, so I'll put it in parentheses. 5 times y plus 11 is equal to 120. Distribute your 5. 5y plus 55 is equal to 120. Subtract 55 from both sides. 5y is equal to 65. and then divide both sides by 5, and you get y is 113. Okay, the only thing I haven't found yet is my scale factor. So what you could do is you can put y in here now also. So 13 plus 11 is 24. And now you can use any set of corresponding sides to get your scale factor. I like to use my smallest numbers because it's the closest, and then I just have to simplify that. So go triangle on the left, which is 5, over, and then it corresponds to this 10, which is triangle on the right. So my scale factor is that simplified. 5/10 simplified is 1/2. Now what if I would have chosen the 8 instead? What would I have put 8 over? 8 goes over 16, still 1/2. What if I would have chosen this 12? 12 over 24, still have gotten 1/2. Okay, next one is a word problem, but it's actually a lot easier than what we just did. It says, on a map of Illinois, the scale is approximately 2 centimeters is equal to 55 miles. Measuring the map, you can see that from Chicago to Springfield is about 6 centimeters. What's the distance between Chicago and Springfield? So we do want to use a proportion to do this. Some people always say like, well, I just did this instead of doing that. When I give you decimals, it's not as easy. So please make sure you're using proportions. All right, so I know that 2 centimeters is equivalent to 55 miles. Or I shouldn't say it's equivalent to. It's from 2 centimeters on the map is 55 miles in real life. I also want to make sure I put that that's centimeters over miles. Okay? All right, so I'm going to make my proportion. I'm going to cross multiply and solve it. My first is 2 over 55. Remember, this is centimeters over miles. So now I'm going to look to see what I was given. I was given that Chicago to Springfield is 6 centimeters. Centimeters go in the numerator, and I'm solving for my denominator. Cross multiply. 2x is equal to 330. Divide by 2. And I get x is 165. And then don't forget your label. Denominator is miles. All right, next one here. Find the value of x if triangle BEC is similar to triangle DEF. So first thing you want to do, once again, you see similar, you want to mark the congruent angles. So I know B is congruent to D. B is congruent to D. I know E is congruent to F. E is congruent to F. And then I'll just use a blank angle for A and C. Okay. I need to solve for x. It is on a side. So similarity in sides, I use proportion. So I'm going to use a proportion. Okay, so I'm going to come over to the triangle on the left, and I see that there's no numbers. There's just binomials with x in them. So I'm going to start by picking one. I'll pick this one, x minus 2, and I'm going to put it in my numerator. I could have started by picking x plus 3, but I'm going to pick minus 2 instead. I just feel like it. All right, I need to know what that corresponds to. So if you look, this is in between 1 tick mark and no tick mark. 1 tick mark and no tick mark, that corresponds to 4, so it's going to be over 4. Then I come back over here and say, okay, I'm going to choose x plus 3 because I have to use that. So x plus 3 goes in my numerator because it's on the left. And I look to see it's in between 2 and no tick marks. 2 and no tick marks is going to go over the 5. What about the 6? It is a distractor, okay? You don't use the 6 for anything. I have it there so I know that you know not to use it. All right, this is a binomial. This is a binomial. We're going to cross multiply and solve. 5 times x minus 2 is equal to 4 times x plus 3. Distribute. 5x minus 10 is equal to 4x plus 12. Get all of your x's on one side. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. X minus 10 is equal to 12. And then I'm going to add 10 to both sides. X equals 22. This problem only asked me to find x, so it is done. Okay, next one. Find the value of x if, and then I have 2 similar polygons. So I'm going to start by marking, since I see similarity, I'm going to mark the congruent angles. I have W is congruent to P. W congruent to P. E is congruent to Y. T is congruent to O. And then I'll use the fourth angle as my blank angle. All right, this has to do with sides. So I'm going to make a proportion, cross multiply, and solve it. I'll start with the polygon on the left. I'm just going to do the x plus 6. X plus 6 over. I need to know what it corresponds to. Use your angles for reference. It's in between 1 and 3. Or sorry, none and 3. None and 3 corresponds to 5. Next, I have this 2x minus 2. That's on the left, so it goes up top. And I want to know what it corresponds to. It's in between 2 and 3 tick marks. 2 and 3 tick marks is 7. All right, I'm ready to cross multiply. I'm going to put these in parentheses. I have 7 times x plus 6 is equal to 5 times 2x minus 2. 7x plus 42 is equal to 10x minus 10. Get all your x's on one side. I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. I have 42 is equal to 3x minus 10. Add 10 to both sides. 3x is equal to 52. And then finally divide by 3. Now, I need a calculator for this because I can't. I know it's a decimal though. So 52 divided by 3. 3 goes into 5 once. There's a remainder of 2. 3 goes into 22 7 times. Remainder of 1. So I know it's 17.3 repeating. So I shouldn't say I need a calculator, but just to show you. 52, right, divided by 3. Divided by 3. Enter it. 17.3 repeating. So when I write that down, since it doesn't tell me in the problem where to round to, I want to write down 17.3 repeating like I just did right there. So I'm going to do x equals 17.3 repeating. That way I didn't round. Or you can leave it as 52 over 3. Okay? Or x equals 52 over 3. Either one is fine. Okay, last one, and it is basically very similar. I was going to say basically the same as, but it's very similar to this example 4 right here that we did. Okay, and this is exactly how it looks like on your test. If triangle BAC is similar to triangle DEF, find x, y, and z and the scale factor. So I like to start by putting in my congruent angles. B and D are congruent. B and D. So since they're congruent, I'm also going to put a z right here. Right, because they're the same. A and E are congruent. So I'll put an 85 right here. And then 63, C and F are congruent. So I'll put a 63 right here. All right, worry about my angles first because that's what I like to do. I need to add 63 plus 85. See what that is, and then subtract that from 180. That is 148. And then 180 minus that is giving me 32 degrees. So Z is 32 degrees. I like to get that out of the way. All right, for sides, I use proportions. So I know I'm going to use a proportion to solve for x and y. I'm going to write down my proportion right here, like that. Okay, so I'm going to look at the big picture first. And I say, okay, I see 2 y's and only 1 x. So I'm going to have to solve for y first. So I'm going to circle one and box the other, or you can highlight them in 2 different colors. All right, so I need to know what the one that's circled corresponds to. If you look, it's in between no tick marks and 2 tick marks, or in between my 63 and 85 degree angle. That would be corresponding to this side right here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the y plus 6. Y plus 6 is in between 1 and 2 tick marks. In between 1 and 2 tick marks is this 10. All right, so now I'm ready to make a proportion, cross multiply, and solve it. I'm going to start by either picking the 10 or the 6. It doesn't matter which one. I'll pick the 6. Put it over its corresponding side, which is y. And then go back and pick the 10, and that corresponds to y plus 6. Put the y plus 6 in parentheses, cross multiply, and solve. 6 times y plus 6 equals 10y. 6y plus 36 equals 10y. Subtract 6y from both sides. 36 equals 4y, and divide by 4, and you get y is 9. Now remember, there were 2 y's and only 1 x, so I need the y to help me solve for x. So what I want to do is cross off anything with a y in it and put a 9 in its place. So this is 9. This is 9 plus 6, which is 15. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to make my second proportion and solve for x. So I'm going to make my second proportion and solve for x. All right, I'm going to match up the two sides that I haven't matched up yet. This is 12, and this is x plus 9. And if I double check, it's in between 1 and no tick mark. 1 and no tick mark. All right, I can start by picking the 6 or the 10. I'm going to choose the 6 because it's smaller. It's easier for me to work with. And that's over 9, right? Come back to the triangle on the left and do the 12 over x plus 9. Put the x plus 9 in parentheses, cross multiply and solve. So I have 6 times x plus 9 is equal to 9 times 12, which is 108. Distribute your 6. 6x plus 54 is equal to 108. Subtract 54 from both sides. 6x is equal to 108 minus 54 is 54. And then divide by 6, and you get x is equal to 9 also, by coincidence. All right, the last thing you have to do is get your scale factor. I'm just going to use this 6 over 9 to get my scale factor, right? So I'm going to do the 6 over the 9, and my scale factor is 1/3. You could have used the 10 over 15. 5 goes in there twice, 5 goes in there. Oh, why did I say 1/3? I meant 2/3. Well, that actually helped me find my mistake. 3 goes in there twice, 3 goes in there 3 times, so 2/3. But 5 goes in there twice, 5 goes in there 3 times, so 2/3. So it's good that I checked because it made me catch my mistake. If I would have done 12 over, if I plug in x right here, that's 18. 12 over 18. 6 goes in here twice, 6 goes in here 3 times, 2/3. Okay. All right, that's it